Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morrison, welcome back to the Metal Tempest. And today I'm going to be reviving a series that I used to do quite regularly for those of you that have followed the channel for an extended period of time, and that is my Best Albums of the Month series. It used to be named Albums I Liked, but I'm rebranding it under a different sort of format where I'll just get the chance freeform to talk about a variety of bands and records that I enjoyed from the previous month. Now, the only difference about this is some of the records are going to be ones I didn't review, records that I did enjoy and for whatever reason did not get the chance or the time to give a full-length review to. And obviously I just kind of want to put these on your guys' radar, and all of the links to these records are going to be down in the description box below if you haven't heard any of them or it piques your interest. I'm obviously not going to be able to give them all the justice that they deserve in this short little video. But what were your favorite records that you listened to last month? It could be ones that weren't even released that month. Which ones have you really been enjoying? And without further ado, let's get right into the list. I want to shout out probably my favorite record that I've checked out recently, that being Spire of Lazarus's record, Soaked in the Sands. This is like one of those technical death metal records that come around once in a blue moon and blow my socks off. It also has a lot of deathcore influence into it, especially in like the blast beats. It's, imagine like if you took, say, Oceano, mixed it with some Rings of Saturn, and then threw in like Slice the Cake, as well as, I'm trying to think of some other examples, like the amazing riffage of like a Behold the Arctopus or an Arch Spire, and just melded it into this extremely fast BPM, aggressive, technically proficient, very energized technical death metal style. It's not so much deathcore that if you are just a fan of like purist tech death, you're not going to enjoy it, but I will say if you're not a fan of very hyper-produced technical death metal, this probably isn't going to be the type of record you're going to get much out of, so keep that in mind if you step into this record. But it's really just an awesome experience, just has a great sound to it, and I suggest this for anyone that feels like tech death hasn't been having that many great releases. Want to shout out Haunt with Windows of Your Heart. Most of the time I don't really talk that much about Haunt because they release like 50,000 albums like a year. They're a very prolific project, but at this point in time people understand what they're gonna get. They're gonna get this new wave of heavy metal and thrash metal sound, but they actually have some really cool riffs across this thing. Some of the riff work is just very catchy, a lot of great grooves, a lot of great licks, and the vocals accompany it well. A lot of times I feel like I'm getting a little fatigued by all of the Haunt releases, but this record really stuck out to me as a catchy, well-produced, well-made record with just some great riffs on it, and I think that's what drew people to Haunt in the beginning, was the riff writing, the great thrash metal and heavy metal riffs, because of all the copycat bands you get nowadays, Haunt really stuck out of that corpse pile, and I think that's true here too. Gonna shout out Wormrot with Hiss. Of course you guys knew this was gonna be here. One of the greatest grindcore records of the year. Anytime Wormrot releases a record, these Singapore slammers, like, they're going to rock the world of grindcore for that year and leave a massive imprint on the foundation of it, and this is no different. Amazing percussive work, some monstrously visceral and heavy, just throat-shredding vocals, so much great production coming from the riffs, very quick, very fast-paced, very just frantic and chaotic, but a lot of intelligence and discernibility to the riff writing, and the musicianship is extremely tight, and the chemistry is just really on point. I found myself really impressed by the vocals across this record. The layering is hellish, it is just distorted, it is blown out, but it has that Wormrot signature, and I just really am impressed by this as a grindcore record, as are most people. Not quite a metal record, but Greg Anderson of the band Sun, the drone metal band Sun, has released a solo project under the name The Lord, and this is entitled Forest Nocturne. He took a lot of influence from John Carpenter and a lot of horror makers and film composers for like horror movies and just cinematic. Took a lot of influence from like early horror movies and a lot of those soundtracks with building tension and this layering of eeriness darkness and ambiance, I would classify this thing as a dark ambient record, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and sometimes it's a little paced for my liking, but there's something very kind of icy about the tension building and the slow burn of this record. And if you're a fan of horror movie soundtracks, especially classic horror movie soundtracks, and you like the work of Greg Anderson and Stephen O'Malley from Sun, you're probably going to end up enjoying this record, and I wanted to put it on your guys' radar because I think a lot of people don't really know about this record or what it is. We have a new EP from Voidrot with Telluric Dismemberment. Death doom band Voidrot, I really wasn't a fan of them in the past, but I think them in a smaller dosage has kind of like not necessarily re-energized themselves because their sound isn't particularly different, but I was more impressed by how gritty and low and murky their sound was across this EP. Has a great sound to it, a lot of audibility to the riffs, and that cavernous, almost like 20-buck spin type sound to them, like the, witch vomit and tomb mold and coffins and tomb sound. Like that sort of vibe is what you get across this record, and while it is playing a bit by the numbers, I really just found it to be some familiar comfort candy for that type of style. Slam Metal of the Year so far is probably going to go to Organectomy's Nail Below Nail. This is one of those like guilty pleasure bands, or actually I don't personally believe in guilty pleasures, but as for slam metal, I glaze over a lot of releases because they do blend together, and while Organectomy by no stretch of the imagination are reinventing the wheel or anything, I have found myself coming back to this record a lot, and I have enjoyed Organectomy in the past. I said that in my review, to where I think I feel even more positively about it than I did prior. This just sounds great. It has that same slamming blast beat, 500,000 BPM, insane low guttural vocals, but it's just the sound in the execution that keeps bringing me back to it. It's gritty, it's rough, it's heavy, and that's what I enjoy about it. And even if people think it just kind of blends in with other slam metal records, it is probably one of my favorite slam records of the year. My grindcore record of the year and death grind record of the year is going to go to Remains with Grind Till Death. Special thanks to the band for actually reposting it on Facebook. That was actually very cool. I did not expect that. This record rips. For a debut, these Australian guys, if you can check out like 2 records across this list, check out Spire of Lazarus and this record. This is just a great, amazingly well-produced, hard-hitting, pummeling, throttling grindcore record with death metal influence. They don't let up on the gas. Like I said, they are throttling. They are extremely fast-paced, but they also have a lot of surprisingly catchy and intelligible riffs to them. They pack a lot into each track, and each track really flows cohesively. For a debut, I was blown away with how awesome this production sounded. It reminded me of Kurt Ballou of Converge's production with how insulated it felt and how enclosed it felt and encased in this wall of just distortion. It's great, and it's probably... Is it? Yeah. It's my favorite record that I checked out last month, so definitely it was an amazing underground discovery, and I can't recommend it enough. Finally, I'm going to shout out Dance Gavin Dance's Jackpot Juicer. While there are some filler tracks and some moments that don't stick as much as they should, this is like the closing of a chapter, the closing of an era for Dance Gavin Dance, and they scratch a certain itch with their cyclical riffs and their pacing, their math rock influence, their post-hardcore influence. This is John's record. Tillian's chorus is pop. The production, while it is a little EQ'd and compressed by my liking, is never going to be a bad thing, and I was very impressed with this record. Even though it has some duds, for it being such a long record, you would think there would be quite a few more duds than there are, but I just really enjoyed it. But that wraps it up for me. What were your favorite records that you listened to last month? Let me know down in the comments section below. I can't wait to hear it. And what were your thoughts of some of these records if you've heard them? Be sure to let me know. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.